Hey there, welcome to Here's What I Learned. I'm Jackie Hayes, a systems strategist, unapologetic, smutty romantasy lover, Dungeons & Dragons geek, and your no BS guide to building a business that works for you. This is the place where we swap stories, share lessons, and get real about the highs and lows of creating a life and business that actually feels good. No cookie cutter advice here, just honest conversations about what's working, what's not, and how to rewrite the rules to fit your version of success. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's dive in. Today on Here's What I Learned, I have Alesia Galati, a podcast strategist and the founder of Galati Media, a full-service podcast management agency. She believes everyone has a story to tell and is dedicated to empowering others to share their voices with the world. Alesia, welcome to Here's What I Learned.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Jackie. I'm so excited to be here.
I am too. I get to spend time with Alesia in the Feminist Podcast Collective, and I always love to hear her insights. And so I cannot wait to have you on the show so my audience can hear from you. But like every episode, I ask my guests, what is something that you have been learning about lately?
Oh man. Okay. So this is a personal thing that I have been learning, and I am on a get healthier journey, right? I don't want to call it a fitness journey or a weight loss journey because really it's about losing fat, gaining muscle is really my goal. Is like, I want to see the muscle increase. I want to be stronger. I want to be able to have do regular activities without being like, whoo, I'm winded, right? And so been focusing on that. And I'm on week 10 right now of like Monday through Friday, working out. Barely lost any weight, but my muscle is because my muscles increased, and I can see that on like my trackers. But one thing I'm learning is that I can do hard things. And this has been something that's been really hard for me. Like, I'll get to the end of a workout, or like sometimes I'll rope my kids in. They're 10 and 7. I'll rope them in, and I'm like, because they do MMA 3 days a week. And so I'm like, all right, Mondays and Thursdays, I do cardio. You guys have to do at least 10 of these exercises with me. And they're like, oh, Mom, I don't wanna. And I'm like, come on, we could do hard things. But then I hear it reflected back to me when I'm like at the end of a workout and my kids can see that I'm struggling. They're like, come on, Mom, you could do hard things. And I love that. And I'm learning so much about what I'm capable of. So yes.
I love that. As somebody who has a past as a personal trainer, I know how hard it can be to get back into that or even start. And I'm in this slump of like needing to get back into fitness. And my partner wants me to run a mud run with him in the spring. And I'm like, I haven't run. Like I always say I'm allergic to cardio. I'm like, give me the weights. I'm allergic to cardio. But I think during our runs right now, he's going to have to remind me that you can do hard things. You can do hard things. I may get irritated with him. We'll see. But so, Alesia, what does it mean to you to do business your way?
Yeah, so when I thought about this question, it really brought me back to when I started this part of my business, because I've been in the online space for about 10 years now, but I didn't start doing podcast production for other people until 2020. So we're going on 5 years. And one thing that I knew I wanted to do when I started this, because I had 5 years of quote unquote failures, I knew that I didn't want to do business like all of the webinars or all of the online gurus or any of those people were telling me that I had to do it. And I knew I wanted to build a team. I knew that I wanted to be able to have space to be able to offer really high quality services and do business my own way rather than relying on, oh, well, so-and-so says I have to create a course. Now I have to create a course. Or so-and-so says I have to do a group program. Now I got to do a group program. But instead just saying quiet to all of those voices and saying, look, I know what I want to do with this business. It is successful and it's working. So stop getting distracted with all the other things. Now we're at a time where I'm shifting that because we're seeing it be a little different in business where, in 2020, it would make sense for me to do like just have the what done for you services. Whereas now that I have a lot of those under my belt, I want to serve the people who maybe can't afford the done for you services, the ones who are really more impact driven, but are like, look, I don't have thousands of dollars to give you every month, but I want to be able to grow my show. What can I do? And so having those free resources like the podcast or workshops or freebies. And I had a had a friend interview me for my 200th episode, which is coming out soon. And she was like, Alesia, you give so much free content away. It's kind of a bit ridiculous. Some of the things that you give away for free. And I'm like, I know, but I just want everybody to have everything they need to like be successful. Let's do this together. And so, yeah, that's just how I am showing up, but also just following, right? So, like, how to do business different, following that intuitiveness at the beginning, but then also following it now, which has been a little hard too. But I am happy that I'm doing it because I know that the business is mine and I'm not just copying and pasting what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, I mean, we all have been bombarded with all of those suggestions and ways of doing things. And I'm sure all of us have done those things at the start of our business because we just don't know any better, especially if I don't have a background of family members who were business owners. Everybody worked for somebody. So I didn't have a model to follow. So it was easy to fall into um, what everybody was telling me to do that had been around for a while. And um, you quickly start to go, wait a minute, their life is not my life. They have different energy levels. They have different connections that they started their business with than me, all of these different things. And then having to kind of make that shift it can be challenging to do that. One thing when you were talking, you said you knew you wanted to have a team. I'm curious because there's people I talk to who are like, no, 100% I want to be a solopreneur. And then there's folks that are like, yes, I want to build a team. And some who are like, I want to build a team and then I want to build my business so much that I can sell it and live off the proceeds of that. So how did you know that you wanted to have a team and why did you want to have a team?
So I knew that I wanted to scale the business in some way. And because one of my driving forces and selling points is that we listen to every word of the podcasts that we edit, I know I do not have 40 hours of editing only time in the week. And so knowing that, hey, we could scale up to 10, 15, 20, and we have gotten to the point of 15 weekly shows that we were editing between me and my two teammates. And so knowing that, like, I don't have hours for just me to spend editing this and having a background in manufacturing, I had created so many SOPs, like life-saving SOPs. If you don't do this right, you will die and everybody else will die kind of things. Because we were working with compressed gases, which is very dangerous and can be very dangerous. And so taking that of like, okay, it's a podcast, it's not life or death, but I can at least create a standard operating procedure for people who are like, wait, what's an SOP? Of here's a checklist of things that need to be done and here's how we do these for every single client, and then knew that I wanted to build a team in some way. And so I actually have that baked into my values, and I know we're going to talk values too, is that number one, I want to pay myself a living wage. That is my first value. Number two, I want to pay my team a living wage. That is my second value, right? And then it goes into like the kinds of people we want to work with, et cetera. But that driving force allowed me to say, okay, here's what I need to charge. And here's how I want to grow my team in a way that I'm not just giving one person, hey, you're doing all the editing or hey, you're doing all the graphics, but how can I train them to be multifaceted so that if they leave, right? Obviously, I don't want them to leave, but if they did leave or if I had to let them go or whatever, if the business shifts and life happens, that they would be able to take all of the skills that they've learned, not just, oh, I only do graphics and so I've got to go do that. No, they know everything from the editing all the way through to the marketing to be able to kind of go forward with those assets, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the team. I love my team. They are incredible. I could not do this without them, especially because we listen to every word. I could not be there doing that.
Well, there's, as you said, we'll talk about values, and I think we're just going to kind of transition there now because of the couple of things you mentioned there. One was, I mean, obviously, I think all of us want to pay ourselves a living wage, but some of the things that I've seen in the online space when it comes to bringing on contractors or specifically contractors is to find them cheap, go outsource them from out of the country so that you don't have to pay very much. And now, granted, paying them that in their country, living, cost of living, et cetera. But it's like, get the cheapest help you can get. And then most other people, like in the corporate world or even still in that mindset, wouldn't be like, I want to give them all the skills so they can go be successful somewhere else. Um, where does that come from for you, those two things?
Yeah. So the first, paying them a living wage, and my team's all in the US. That's also another thing that's like a driving force for me is like, I want to be able to have meetings with them regularly. And I don't want to have to worry about crazy time zones. Like, we've got the Central and Eastern is where my team is located. So it works really well for our weekly calls. And so that's something that's really important for me. And so I liked keeping them in that space. And I don't know that I would ever go out of it, but yeah, it always felt really icky for me, just from a values perspective, to source outside of the country for the cheapest labor. It doesn't feel right to me. And so that was something that I just knew I didn't really want to do. And then where does that kind of instill the managerial stuff of kind of unknown managerial stuff? So I think it has to do with I had a boss when I was in corporate, and he was a fantastic boss. And I model a lot of the ways that he acted with my team. But one of the things that he always instilled was pulling people up, right? To like gear them up for whatever that next step is for them, whether it was with him or with somebody else, because he knows that it can benefit the business as a whole, right? Especially this was a big manufacturing plant. So even if I were to leave his department, I would still see success somewhere else in another department and be able to help the business in general. But he was just such a fantastic manager. And I actually reached out to him a couple years ago. I would say it was maybe 2022. And I was like, hey, I wanted to, one, check in, see how you're doing, see what's up. But also, I wanted to thank you for being such an incredible boss because I model a lot of the stuff that I do after you. And I love your approach. And one thing he would always say is like, I'm not going to ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do. And I'm willing to do all of those things, right? But I also have to know like my team's not wasn't ready to do all of those things right out the gate. And so I had to train them up to be able to handle it. And so what I think too is that it gives our clients a more concrete feeling every week because they know that person has my back on all of these assets rather than 15 hands are touching this, which can feel a little like, is my voice going to be right in this or are they going to get to know me? Whereas like my team, so they've been with me since 2021 and we have clients that are still with us from then. And like my team knows their voice. They know exactly how to state things, how to write things, how to do things for like show notes and what kind of things they're looking for. And yes, we have some of those in the SOPs, but a lot of it can be just, oh, well, I know the client and I know how they like things. And so now the client has that kind of assurance that the team member is going to handle them in a very caring kind of way because they've been working with them so long and they're not just getting passed off to everybody.
So, one of the things that I said during your intro was that you believe everybody has a story to tell, which I'm going to guess is another one of your values. Um, and then obviously, they can do that through podcasts with your support. What do you think, or what have you seen has been the biggest hurdle people are overcoming when it comes to putting their story out there and starting a podcast?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest hurdles is probably imposter syndrome in that they're not really sure, well, who am I to have a voice? And this is something that I had to work on myself when I launched my first podcast in 2018. And I already had some like quirks around how I talk and my voice and the more baritoneness of it. because I'd gone through like a really bad sickness when I was 18 that completely changed my voice. So I went from singing like soprano all the way to singing with the guys in the choir in the alto and the bass. And so I already had some insecurities around my voice. And oh man, like my story is not unique. It's quite unique actually, but it's in my head, I'm thinking my story is not unique. Nobody wants to hear about me. No one wants to learn from me. And I had to get over that and just say, who cares? Let's see. There might be 5 people that want to hear what I have to say. And it was really interesting because when I launched my second podcast with my sister in 2019 called Two Sisters in a Cult, we shared our experience growing up in a cult and how the cults we were talking about every week related back to the one that we grew up in. And one thing that we learned very quickly is that when you share your voice, other people will come forward and say, I thought I was alone. I have that experience too. And that just really showed me the power of sharing your story, of using your voice as a way to communicate this stuff. And as someone who's part of a few of the marginalized communities, I think that it's so important, right? That people who have historically been shut up or shut down, that they have space to use their voice to share stories. And so obviously, I'm not talking about the dude bros who have terrible opinions about things that they don't know anything about, right? We're not talking about those guys. We're talking about people who are impact driven, who are like, I have something incredible to share and I'm kind of scared to share it, right? Like, do it scared. And then when you're looking at your numbers, like realizing that these are people, right? I think a lot of the time as podcasters or content creators, we're like, I got 120 likes. Cool. Well, that's 120 people who said they liked your content or hearted it, right? That's pretty incredible. But instead we just, oh, well, it's not the 200 I had last time, right? Like, come on, let's release that and just see these numbers as people, because these downloads that we get on our podcast, these views that we get on our content, these are individuals who are absorbing our content and are actually growing in the background from the things that we're creating. So, yeah, I just think it's so incredible.
Yeah, I had heard somebody say if you stop to think about like the number of downloads of a podcast episode, if that was you on a stage in front of people, would you have the same reaction of, oh, it was only 30 people or only 30 downloads? Well, it was 30 people who came and sat down and gave you 10, 15, 20, 30 or more minutes of their time and wanted to listen to you. And a lot of them
Yeah.
keep coming back week after week. So would you have a very different perspective on it if you thought about it that way? So yeah, I completely agree. It shifted how I thought about my podcast too. It was like, oh wow. And I'm assuming that several of them are coming back. So that's awesome.
Yes, it's such a powerful thing to view it that way. And that's something that I do with my clients, especially when I mention followers. So, like, how many people are following your podcast? All right, it's only 350 people, but it's 350 people. Do you understand that?
Exactly. It's 350 people who don't like to be on a telephone, but will listen to you for an hour.
So powerful.
What do you think is your favorite thing when working with clients when they're starting a podcast?
Okay, so I would have to say my favorite thing is just their excitement, but also like nervousness, but the excitement about what is going to happen about their show. Just that new podcast energy is just really exciting. I mean, at this point, we've launched almost 50 podcasts. So I've gotten that a lot, which is a lot of fun. And then even like launching my own recently of like, it's different every time because the shows are different, the hosts are different, or the audience is different, right? But the launching is just, oh man, it's such a fun and exciting phase. And one thing that I love that we do differently than other production companies is that we actually do market research. And this goes back to my degree in marketing because I'm like, look, we need to do market research. And one of the things is that it sets our clients up for success with their launch. So if we had a client that they were a podcast, they wanted to create a podcast about GMOs. And from looking at the market research, we realized I don't know that there's enough information here for an ongoing show that's for GMOs. I think it would actually make more sense to do a limited series. And so being able to present that information rather than just being like, just tell me what to do and we're going to do it. No, we're going to be really strategic with this. And then being able to see that have success, right, in its own right as a limited series, I think was just really fun to see. But yeah, those clients that have that kind of new podcast energy, those are really fun. But then I also have to say that another part I love, kind of love about my job is that I get to kind of talk my clients off the ledge sometimes. They're like, I'm going to throw it away. I'm done. I've been doing this for years and nothing's working, right? Which I get. We all have those days, but usually they either text or call me up and I hop on a call with them. I'm like, all right, let's look at the data. What does the data tell us, right? Like, let's take the emotions out of it because we're probably feeling a little manic today and that's okay. But where are we going with this? What are we doing with the show? If you want to stop it, that's okay. But you need to be sure. Like, let's look at the numbers. And so I like to be able to do that too, to just be able to be a sounding board and support for someone who is like, kind of freaking out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think anybody who has started a podcast and or business has had multiple burn it down days. But they just need somebody in their corner to be like, yeah, I get it. Let's breathe and maybe wait until tomorrow and see how you feel then.
Yes. Sleep on it. It's okay.
What are some of the lessons that you have learned, some of the biggest lessons you've learned as somebody who has been in this space for 10 years as far as online, but then also for the last 5 years doing what you do now?
Yeah. Trust yourself is honestly the number one thing I've learned. And every decision that led to quote unquote success, right? Whatever success looked like for me at that moment was because I trusted myself to take the leap. And I think that that's such an underutilized part of being a business owner is that like we just said, we're second guessing ourselves every other day. We want to burn it down to the ground. And so just knowing that like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I can trust that where I'm headed is in the right direction, I think has been really, really helpful. So I would say that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. Another one is that I get to change my mind. That I do not have to, if I don't want to do this business in 5 years, then that's okay. I can do something else and it's going to be okay, right? That I don't have to keep the same mindset the whole time that I'm going to change. My business is going to change. My clients are going to change. Things are going to change and that's okay. So giving myself grace when I want things to be rigid and they're not being rigid and just saying like, nope, it's okay. Things can change, but also trusting that I know when things need to be changed for myself and trusting that kind of guidance as well.
I find it's interesting that you said that second one there because a conversation I had just a couple of days ago was that as business owners, sometimes we feel locked in. Like we started as this, so we've got to stay that or it'll confuse our people. And yet, if we were in corporate world, we'd probably be changing jobs every couple of years and nobody would blink an eye about it. It's like, no, I'm moving up or I'm moving across or I just don't like doing this job. I'm going to do something else. And it's no big deal. But as business owners, it's like, you're going to confuse your people if you keep changing things. And I'm like, I get bored. I have to change things.
Yes. So true.
If somebody has a podcast and like they've gotten through that, hooray, I've launched it. I've got a few episodes under my belt. I'm sure that there's more than just myself who's done this. Yay, I got it started. Now what? What do you say to people like that?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing that you need to do at that point, and maybe you should have done at the beginning, but most people don't, and that's okay, is set a goal for your show. And there are 4 goals. I'm looking over at my board here because I keep them here to remind myself constantly. There are 4. The first thing is conversion. So do you want your podcast to lead to business invitations or leads for your business or potential clients? What does that look like? So the first is conversions. The next one is impact. So you're trying to increase your brand awareness or education for your audience. We see a lot of nonprofits in the impact space, and that's also some of our clients are nonprofits. So they like that impact part. So we're looking at the social awareness, increase in downloads, that kind of thing. The third one is growth, where you want to grow your podcast audience specifically. So it's just more so about that podcast audience. And then the fourth one is engagement, that you want to see more engagement and interactions, people replying, responding, interacting with your content in some way. And so if you look at those 4 and you say, well, obviously I want them all, I get it, but pick one. So if you pick one goal, that is going to be your focus for the next 6 months, because hopefully you're still podcasting 6 months from now. Give yourself 6 months to really drive hard with that one goal and do the actions that you need to do to achieve those goals. So for example, if your goal is, hey, I want to grow my podcast audience specifically, and then I want to drive new people there, what do I need to do that? That's going to look like some collaborations with other people, maybe some pretty decent guests, right? And I'm not saying high level celebrity guests, because those don't always translate to more downloads, sadly. But those micro influencers, right? The people who have really established and dedicated audiences, those ones are going to do really well for your show. And then the third thing I would focus on with that is podcast guesting. Because if you're constantly promoting on social media where people are going for their dopamine hits, they're not going to move over to their podcast app to learn educational content. Sadly, I know it sucks, but where can we focus the attention? So, okay, yes, I want to post on social media. That's cool. You can do that, but know that that's not really going to help you achieve your goal quickly or efficiently. So being a guest on other people's show, they're already listening on their app. And then your call to action at the end is, hey, go check out my podcast. That is going to drive more traffic to your show. We've seen clients double and then triple their downloads with really strategic podcast guesting. So that's what I mean when I say, like, find a goal, establish what that is, and then say, all right, I'm going to double down on these activities, these goal achieving activities for the next 6 months, and I'm going to see success. And I say 6 months because 3 is not enough to see those results kind of cycle through. So give yourself 6 months. And then after that, if you want to change your goal, go ahead. You can. It's okay.
What is something you would like to leave the audience with?
You can do hard things, whether that's a podcast or a business or lifting heavier weights, whatever that is for you, that you can do hard things. And I believe in you.
Thank you for being here. Where can everybody find you?
Yes. Thank you so much, Jackie. This has been so much fun. People can go, because how do you spell Alesia anyway? There's like 50 different spellings for this. So you can go to helpmypod.com, helpmypod.com. Made it super easy for you. And there's a freebie there, 15 ways to improve your podcast, as well as a link for a free consultation. If you're like, I kind of need more Alesia in my life, I need to know how to do that, then you can go there and there's links right over there.
All of those links that link will be in the show notes. So everybody check that out. Again, thanks for being here today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Here's What I Learned. If today's episode gave you an aha moment, a laugh, or something to think about, make sure you're subscribed to my email list. That's where I share even more tips, stories, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you simplify and thrive. And remember, you get to do business and life your way. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep simplifying, and keep learning.